Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends. This is Jason. This is our buddy Teaser, our mascot. I'm Chucky. We're here to talk a little sports, have some fun. It was a rough week last week for our side of the counter, Jay, but Merry Christmas to all you guys. Favorites went 12-3. The big games of teams that were, 6 points or more, 8-0. I think you guys are still cashing, to be honest, but congratulations on a great week. We're here to talk about another week, but that was a rough one for our side of the counter.
Yeah, it's thank goodness it's the holidays and we're able to keep a little bit of a smile on our face, but definitely a early Christmas present to all the sports bettors this week as Sunday, combined even with going all the way back to Thursday with the Vikings' big win. But it was a really rough week for the sports books, and a lot of tickets get cashed, and I'm sure that hopefully went to a lot of Christmas presents for your loved ones. But
you didn't bet it back?
We'll start the week over, and we actually got really kind of lucky on our side of things with the Rams and their Monday night win over the Cardinals. It could have gotten much worse. There was a lot of you that had tickets that would have cashed even more money had the Cardinals been able to pull that game out. So the Rams did the books a good solid and not making that win or that loss any worse on Monday night.
I know there was one lucky guest at Red Rock who had a $200 teaser that paid close to $60,000 on that teaser card. So congratulations.
Well, I know we have what are considered IRS tickets in the sports book when a ticket pays over 300 to 1, and we get a scattering of those throughout the year and have a couple of them. But I think we were up north of close to over 30 tickets that we had that paid out over 300 to 1. Right. So a lot of those parlay cards were cashing some pretty big tickets.
Yeah, there was a lot of 4, 5, 6, 7, 18 parlay cards that were cashed. So again, congratulations, you guys. Great week. Happy holidays on that. It was a costly game though for the Cardinals. I mean, it was great for us having the Rams win. Cardinals lose, which kind of muddies the waters a little bit, not only in the NFC West, but the NFC. But they lose Hopkins in that game, who's probably going to be out for the rest of the year. He's got a torn MCL. That's a big loss for that team. They still have other receivers in Moore and Green and Christian Kirk, but I think losing a guy like Hopkins really hurts that offense down the stretch.
Yeah, and we saw a little bit, AJ Green has been kind of not a big part of that offense. We saw him take a much bigger role on Monday night. We've seen James Conner absolutely flourish in this Arizona offense, and
he's a little banged up too. Right?
They're going to get Edmonds back this week, and for the Arizona Cardinals, the biggest gift from a Christmas standpoint is you get to make a trip to Detroit, where everybody gets healthy playing the Lions. So a good week
except the Minnesota Vikings. Who did lose to them a couple of weeks ago. But, it was it's. I think when you look at both conferences right now, there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, there's 26 teams that are still live and fighting for a playoff spot, which I can't remember so late in the season. We have the extra week this year. I mean, think about last year, Week 17. They couldn't even flex a game into prime time because there was no game that meant something to both teams. I think it's going to be a different story this year. I think you're going to have a lot of interesting matchups Week 17 and 18 as the season winds down.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great finish, and this was what that extra week we knew that was what was going to kind of bring to us. So everybody's kind of battling for a playoff spot. Even those teams that are sitting at 500 right now or just below 500 have an outside shot of finding themselves in the playoffs. And then we also got that battle for the number one seed in both conferences with that coveted bye week that only one team is going to get. So both the teams that are bottom of the pack, middle of the pack, and at the top fighting for that conference win. These are all key games this week.
I think that number one bye, though, when you think about right now, the two teams are New England and Green Bay. And, I think it means so much to Green Bay or Tampa. We know that Rodgers is a little bit banged up. He's got the toe injury. You look at Tampa with Brady, the age, the wear and tear, winning it last year. Either one of those two gets the bye. I think it's really important to them to get it, more so than maybe some of the other teams. I think it's great. Everybody wants the bye, but I think for Tampa and Green Bay, if you can get the bye in the NFC, I think it's big. So, all right, before we jump into this week's games, excuse me, I'm losing my voice a little bit. We're going to talk about the bowl games. 44 bowl games coming up. So let's go bowling.
Yeah, it starts tomorrow night. We've got 2 bowl games on Friday night, and then we'll go into Saturday where I think we've got 5 bowl games kind of marqueed out with number 13 ranked BYU against UAB. That's that kind of marquee. It's the highest ranked game, highest ranked team with BYU. Kind of a surprise to see BYU kind of opening up bowl season with that big high ranking, but take on UAB. They're just about a 7 touchdown favorite in that game. And then another game that I think is really, really interesting. We got Oregon State playing Utah State, and this is kind of a weird is that it's the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. We watched some of these bowl games have some pretty interesting names from their sponsors.
I think we need an STN STN Stephen Money Sports Bowl.
So that should be a good one. One of the things that I thought was interesting in this game is Oregon State was actually 6-0 at home and 1-5 on the road, and Utah State went 7-0 on the road. So obviously these aren't road games; these are neutral site games. Right. But Oregon State struggled away from Corvallis, and Utah State obviously had a lot of success outside. So maybe something to look at there, and you're getting over a touchdown with the Utah State Aggies.
Yeah, I think it just kind of kicks it off. I think the big thing with bowl games that we kind of talked about off the air is there's so much uncertainty that you look at a guy like Kenny Pickett, Walker, you're hearing now Strong for Nevada. There's so many guys that are potentially opting out because they can play in the pros. There's COVID, where a lot of guys are on COVID protocol, and a lot of coaches that are kind of opting out right now, or not opting out, but changing jobs.
Yeah, massive shuffle. And we talked about yesterday, even in the NFL, where they're going to have some rule changes on when coaches can be recruited and stuff like that. So this is just one of the kind of the business aspects of college football, of watching coaching changes here before bowl games and players that are getting themselves prepared for NFL drafts. But kind of throw all that away. I mean, obviously, from a handicapping standpoint, you got to know who's playing in these games and what's going on.
But do your homework. That's the key.
The COVID world, and unfortunately, in all sports across college football, and even as we look into today's NBA and NHL and NFL, it's something that you have to keep up on. The players are testing positive. They've got to get those negative tests to find them way back on the field. And particularly as we go through this week's NFL games, we've got a lot of COVID affecting a lot of teams. I think this was the highest week of COVID positives early in the week than we've had seen at any other point in time in the year. But going back to the college football, obviously, exciting time to go through this, but you've got to do your homework and know who's playing in these games and who's not.
We're really seeing it all the time. I mean, you look almost on social right now, Jalen Waddle now for the Dolphins, so almost every half hour you're seeing another player, and what's the overall impact to the line, I think, is a big thing. But you're right about the coaches now. We touched on it. Pro football, you had to wait until a team's season was over. Now you can do it during week 17 and 18 to interview potential new coaches. So kind of an interesting twist now for coaches. Let's jump into some other sports. Let's look at basketball. What a great story. First, congratulations to Steph Curry. Unbelievable with the three-point record. He's really changed the game. I mean, he's opened it up. He's, that shot clock now, you don't even need a 24-second shot clock if you're the Golden State Warriors, the way that he runs up and down the court and can score. They're 23-5 this year. They're 18-9-1 against the number, but it hasn't translated with his scoring to a lot of overs this year.
Yeah, been a lot of unders going on. We've talked about it. I think the last 2 weeks of just overall scoring in the NBA being down. I know over the last couple of weeks, last week the books have made the adjustments. You're seeing a lot. You're not seeing those 222 over unders. You're seeing stuff more in the 210s.
But that's a direct flip from what we saw last year.
Yeah, when we were in the COVID games again with no fans in the building, we thought we saw like a lack of urgency and momentum and the defensive intensity without the fans in the building. But I think with the fans back in the building and some of the changes that the NBA has made, that's why we're seeing that scoring down less. And Steph Curry wouldn't be one of those guys that you would think scoring is down because of them. But yeah, the Warriors are 7 overs to 20 unders in one push. So the Warriors are one of those teams that are definitely keeping games under. And a guy like Steph Curry would make you, as a bettor, want to continue to take those overs with the number of threes that he's shooting. And with breaking the record, obviously congratulations to him. But he did have a rough stretch over the last 4 or 5 games, kind of chasing this record on his 3-point shooting, hoisting up 14 to 15 threes a night. Hitting. He can
make them from the parking lot,
hitting 3 or 4 each night to kind of get himself these last couple ones. The shooting percentage has been down a little bit, but NBA has been absolutely fantastic. It's good to see some different teams playing well. Obviously, you talk about the Warriors. The Suns are right there with them in that Western Conference. I think both of them
Memphis and Cleveland, to me, are the two biggest surprises.
Yeah, Cleveland with a monster win last night, playing very, very well. Again, you're seeing the Bucks with Giannis having to miss a game here and there. But the Lakers, finally finding a way to come back and win a couple games. And I think as we move through the season, it's going to be more and more exciting. And, as we go through the holidays, we get to kind of celebrate the NBA with some great games coming up on Christmas Day. And so the NBA, it's doing well and love watching these games.
Seems to be a lot more parity this year and a few surprise teams, as we touched on. Let's jump into the NHL now, where it's really being dominated by favorites. I think you look at NHL favorites, 138, 55, and 14, 65% in favor of the favorites, and then away favorites are hitting at 67%. So we talk about the NBA with having a lot of parity right now. It's really started to shift a little bit in the NHL where you're seeing it really dominated by favorites on a nightly basis.
Unfortunately, we've seen some bad streaks with some teams that, kind of get in a rut and stay in a rut. We saw the Flyers before they made their trip to Vegas had lost 10 consecutive games and were able to pull an upset win over Vegas.
Islanders have struggled a lot.
Yeah, Islanders, having to be away from New York on their trip while that building was being built. We've seen some Western Conference teams really struggle at the bottom. The Buffalo Sabres struggling at the bottom. So and the good teams have been good and winning those games. Edmonton Oilers and Minnesota Wild, these teams that are at the top of these conferences continue to win. Right. And we saw the incredibly hot starts for the Carolina and Florida just start off fantastic, and now they're coming a little bit back to earth. But again, pretty big separation of teams at the top and teams at the bottom in today's NHL.
Yeah, I also want to congratulate Fleury on the 500th win, which is great. He was able to get that, not in a Golden Knights sweater, but in a Chicago Blackhawks sweater, but still pretty cool. Let's look at college hoops. I mean, we've talked about kind of Vegas being the mecca for college hoops. We've seen some great games played here. You've got Oklahoma or Ohio State and Kentucky, UCLA and North Carolina. Just some of the matchups that you're seeing, but you've seen 4 different number ones. It's not a good spot to be in because everybody's gunning for you, and none of these schools have lasted long there. But there are some good matchups this weekend.
Yeah, we saw the Zags take the number 1, and they dropped their game to Duke here in Las Vegas, and then Duke went to the number 1 and lost there to Ohio State, and so it put Purdue into the number 1 hole, and then we saw an incredible shot against Rutgers to knock Purdue out of that spot. So Baylor will take their turn, and we'll see
right.
see how long they can hold on to it. See if they can hold on to it for more than a week. And there's a lot of teams right behind them. We were looking UCLA, I think, is sitting in the 4 hole is the team that hasn't had their chance at the number 1 seed with a big win over Marquette. But
they've got a tough game, right?
Yeah, Baylor's going to have to go up to Oregon on Saturday, and the Zags travel out to Texas Tech. You already mentioned UCLA having to go to North Carolina. So these are some great games this week. Just another reason to get that STN Sports app. You got the 10% bonus going on right now. So with all the bowl games, your NFL, your college basketball, just so many reasons to have the STN app and be able to bet from the comfort of your home or wherever you may be.
Yeah, we know everybody's so busy over the holidays. Honey to-do list. I know I've said it for the last few weeks. So it's great to have STN Sports. It really does bring the sportsbook to you. We're going to be right back, and we're going to jump into this week's pro football games. We'll see you shortly on Bookends.
Damn, I look good. What's up, everybody? It's me, Stephen Money. It's football season, and I want you to know that you can bet on me, the STN Sports App. So sign up today and get started with me.
All right, we're back on Bookends, and it's pro football time. It's Week 15, and I think, we touched on what happened last weekend. There's some good matchups this week and some not-so-good matchups this week. Let's start with Thursday night, a big AFC West matchup, Chiefs-Chargers. Chargers already beat them once this year in Kansas City. This game is in L.A. The Chiefs are a little over a field goal favorite, but it's not a home game for the Chargers. It's played in L.A., but there's going to be more red in that stadium than there's going to be blue and gold. It wouldn't surprise me to see this number continue to tick up a little bit. 65% of the tickets are on the Chiefs. They're the hottest team in the AFC in football outside of the Patriots right now. What do you think is going to happen in this game, and how do you think it's going to be bet as we get closer and closer to kickoff?
Yeah, I think that you bettors see what they saw last, and the Chiefs continue to roll and put an absolute beating on the Las Vegas Raiders as they've done now twice this year, and really rolling up the points on the Raiders. And
do you think that? Wait, I interrupt. Do you think the Chiefs will stomp on the Chargers logo at midfield?
Yeah, I
tonight?
don't think we'll see them go do that.
I don't think so either.
I think that again, this game has got a lot of question marks as we're sitting here several hours away from game time. But some COVID issues that were on the Chiefs. We know Chris Jones is one of those guys that was potentially on that COVID list that may not play tonight. And we saw the Chargers last week have some COVID issues with Keenan Allen not playing, and Derwin James not playing. So hopefully those guys can get back onto the field. Eckler, not a COVID issue, but he was questionable coming into the week. Williams will be there for the Chargers. We saw a little bit of the development of Guyton and Palmer with
right.
Keenan Allen out, a development of a couple other receivers, which is a great happening for Herbert and that young team as they grow together to be able to stay in that game.
Right.
But this comes down to this Chiefs defense has been really, really good since about 6 weeks ago. They're winning the games. The offense hasn't really had to win the games, and now that the defense is playing well, and you give that offense that many more opportunities, now you get to see what Patrick Mahomes has been doing. And so, they got the gift of the Raiders' struggles kind of last week and continue to develop their offense. And you said that the Chargers were able to beat this team the last time out, and believe me, the Chiefs remember that. So they want to be able to go into L.A. And win this game and hopefully continue to find themselves a way to get that number 1 seed.
This is a really good Charger team, though, too. I think if the Chargers do win tonight, they're in first place in the AFC West, and they have command of this division. You talk about a young quarterback there in Justin Herbert, back-to-back years now, 30 touchdown passes in his first 2 years. He's a very talented, good young quarterback. I think a lot of teams right now are regretting not taking him sooner in the draft, and he kind of just fell to the Chargers a little bit in draft day.
Well, they're going to have to do it with a pass rush on Patrick Mahomes, and they're going to have to find a way to get some turnovers. The games that the Chiefs have lost was the 17 turnovers in those
right.
games that they lost, and I think they've only turned the ball over 6 times in the game that they've won. So that's really the tail of the tape for the Chiefs. If you're able to turn them over, you got a chance to be able to win the game.
And we're kind of fortunate this week, too, that there's actually 4 days that there's pro football games. It's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. There's 2 games on Saturday. The first game is the Raiders, who they stay on the road and they travel now to go play Cleveland. The second game is New England and Indianapolis.
Yeah, really the marquee game of the week we get on Saturday
absolutely.
night.
But let's talk about the Raiders and Browns. We've seen a dramatic move in this game, and it's not because of anything on the field, it's off the field. The Browns have a number of guys in COVID protocol, including Baker Mayfield, Kevin Stefanski, their head coach, Jarvis Landry, They have a lot of guys in COVID protocol right now. We've seen this game go from the Browns almost a touchdown favorite to the Raiders a favorite right now. So a dramatic swing right there. If it's not Mayfield, it will be Case Keenum. He's actually won a playoff game. I don't think there's that big of a drop-off. I am kind of surprised, though, that it was that big of a swing, yet we're still seeing over 60% of the tickets in favor of Cleveland, but money has kind of shifted in favor of the Raiders.
Yeah, and, talk about betting what you saw last. It's really difficult to kind of put your money on the Raiders at this point in time with the fact that they just haven't been playing very, very good
But at 6
football.
and 7, they're not out of it.
Yeah, they've still got a chance,
Right.
and making the road trip to Cleveland on a short week, again playing on a Saturday afternoon. But I think that the COVID issues with the Browns have really swung this line as to who they're actually going to be able to put on the field. There's a lot of offensive linemen and some defensive front guys that are on that COVID list, so really pay attention come Saturday. There's potential to be some line movement back toward Cleveland if they're able to
I
get
think
some
you're
of
going
these,
to see that, right?
If they're able to get some of these guys back. But right now, that line is based on probably 8 to 12 Cleveland guys out, including a bunch of their coaching staff.
I think the key right now is that Nick Chubb is still playing in this game. You're going to probably see him get 30 to 35 carries in this game based on what else we hear from the other guys. The late game, and you touched on it. For me, it's the marquee game of the week. It is a phenomenal game. It's not Tom Brady against Peyton Manning. It's Mac Jones against Carson Wentz, but it is the Colts and Patriots. It's a big game for both teams. Patriots sit at number 1 in the AFC. Colts have now snuck into a wild card spot. Something to think about, though, for the Patriots is that they host Buffalo next week. So this is kind of back-to-back really tough games for them. They're on top right now. Colts are a 2.5-point favorite. Have seen some early action on the Colts as far as money across the counter, but 70% of the tickets are on the Patriots.
Yeah, and I think that move toward the Colts is, again, the Patriots, while they're fighting for that number 1 seed, a loss here isn't super damaging.
Next week's game is the key,
if they
right.
can go beat Buffalo next week. Obviously, they want to try and win every game, and one of the things, don't quote me on these numbers, but I think Belichick over the last 8 years is 6-1-1 coming off their bye week, and strangely enough, we have both teams coming off their bye week. The Colts are 4-1-1 off their bye weeks the last 6 years, something like that. So 2 teams that have played well off their recent bye weeks. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor is probably going to be the story of this game if the Colts are able to win the game. And the Colts wins. He's absolutely run wild. Carson Wentz manages the game and doesn't commit those turnovers. They don't have to do a ton of passing yards. When we get into Colts games where Taylor's not able to have a huge running game and you're expecting Carson Wentz to go win that game, that's where they've had some struggles where they get that key turnover or something like that allows the other team to sneak in the game. So But this is one I've had circled on the calendar because, again, I think the Colts, if they play their best game, can go in there and be at home and beat the Patriots. But man, this Patriots team just every week finds a way to win these games.
I mean, you're absolutely right about Jonathan Taylor, and he's the key. But you talk about a Patriots team that's given up the second fewest points in the league. They're coming off a bye week. What better coach than Bill Belichick to, over the last 2 weeks, scheme to stop Jonathan Taylor and say, okay, Carson Wentz, you have to beat us. You're going to have to go and win through the air because we're going to stop your run game. And that's been the Patriots' MO under Belichick each and every week. They take away the opposition's key player and ask other players to beat you. So we'll see how the line ends up closing. It wouldn't surprise me to see this game start to come down a little bit in favor of the Patriots. Ticket counts definitely favor the Patriots right now. Washington and Philadelphia, big NFC East game. It looks like Jalen Hurts is going to be back. We've seen that number go up about a point and a half, almost 2 points right now. I think it's at a touchdown. Hurts is not 100%. There's a chance it could be Gardner Minshew, who played really well in the last game that he started for them. Washington has a number of COVID injuries, or guys in COVID protocol, a number of injuries. That number has really trended up right now. A big game for both these teams who are still kind of fighting for a wild card spot.
Yeah, Washington was the hottest team in the league with their consecutive wins, and then Dallas was able to come into town and kind of knock them off. They've really had some turnover issues. Antonio Gibson specifically, I think he leads the NFL with 6 fumbles. Can't continue to do that and especially with McKissick has been out, so they haven't had their other running back there. And the Eagles have just been a running monster, whether it's Hurts or Gainwell or Sanders or Boston Scott.
Right.
They got the big addition to get Sanders back, and he had a great running game. So Washington again fighting all those COVID issues, could see Philadelphia just continue to go and grind out the running game.
Yeah, curious to see, if Hurts is healthy, how he plays in that game after not playing for a couple of weeks. Carolina and Buffalo. There's a chance that Sam Darnold's going to get the start for Carolina in this game. He's been activated. Buffalo, to me, is the biggest disappointment in all of football. When we talked about our AFC, NFC Super Bowl odds and, just AFC against NFC 4, 5, 6 weeks ago was always based on Buffalo. It's a Buffalo team right now that isn't good enough, I don't think, to beat anybody in the playoffs. I mean, a win here, though, and then a win against New England, maybe they get themselves back, but they have really struggled of late. Back-to-back losses against good teams, against New England and Tampa Bay, but the bettors love the Bills. 86% of the tickets are on Buffalo against Carolina.
And I'm not off the Buffalo Bill bus as of yet. I mean, the last 2 weeks we saw them lose to the Patriots and we saw them lose to the Bucs in a snowstorm winter wonderland in Buffalo against the Patriots, and then go down and kind of got blown out early by the Bucs, but pulled their big boy pants up and came back to get that game to a tight game.
Had some bad calls late where they actually could have maybe won that game.
I'm not off Buffalo yet. They've got too much talent, too much going on there to find themselves. They've got some really soft games late in the season. They get to play the Falcons and the Jets, and much like I always make fun of the Detroit Lions, the Carolina Panthers have become a get-well team to other teams here recently as well. I don't think they know what they want to be anymore. With the fact that McCaffrey's been out and lost, they fired Brady, their coordinator. They don't know if they want to have Cam Newton or Walker be their quarterback. They don't know if they want to throw the ball. They say they want to run the ball, but aren't able to run the ball on the Atlanta Falcons last week. So I think Carolina is a mess right now, and if there's any point in time where Buffalo can get healthy and want to feel good about themselves, that would be to put up a big number on the Panthers this
I think
week.
the one thing for Buff is that Josh Allen's a little bit banged up. He's kind of been in a walking boot. He says that injury is probably going to linger the rest of the season, but if he's there and he plays, I tend to agree with you. I think it's a good
and it's
spot
not all on the offensive side of the football for Buffalo. We saw them
can't stop the run.
Yeah, we saw them get real aggravated in a press conference after the Patriot game.
Right.
They absolutely got run over by Indianapolis. They get run over by the Patriots. Fournette and the Bucs had a big game against them last week. They've got a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the football, and not having Tre'Davious White there in that back end is really hurting them from a guy that was able to lock up man-to-man coverage on a top receiver. Now you're having to spend a little bit more time in the secondary, not being able to come up and stuff that run.
Yeah, totally agree. Dallas and the Giants, a big NFC East battle for Dallas. They've kind of just been so-so of late. I think since Dak's come back, 8 touchdown passes, 6 INTs. Looks like it's going to be Glennon again for them. 80% of the tickets on Dallas in this one.
Yeah, and to me, this isn't a game about Dallas. This, again, goes back to the Giants, and we talk about last week how we got kind of lit up by the bettors picking on the bad football teams, be it the Jaguars, the Lions, the Texans, the Bears, and you got to throw the Giants in that boat without Daniel Jones, and not saying that Daniel Jones is a top 10 quarterback or anything like that, but he's a big step up from a Mike Glennon, and it just is a totally offensive, inept team at this point in time, and they're not unable to do anything on the back end from a defensive standpoint. So this is a great spot for Dallas to be able to kind of walk through this game, and we're going to need one of these bad teams to play a good game, to stay in there and be able to cover a spread for us.
Still a division game.
Yeah,
boy,
these bad teams have just looked bad over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
I think the next game for me could have been up there with New England and Indianapolis as one of the marquee games of the week, and that's Green Bay against Baltimore. We know Green Bay is the number 1 seed in the NFC right now. The big question for Baltimore, though, is Lamar Jackson. I mean, everything you kind of read right now, it's going to come right down to the wire if he's able to play or not. And this is one of those games that you will see a dramatic line move without him. If Lamar Jackson is in this game, it's probably, close to pick 'em, I would think. Without him, you're going to see Green Bay probably over a touchdown favorite. It's just a big difference in a marquee game if you don't have Lamar Jackson. Everything that Baltimore offense does runs through Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and they have not been a particularly good team, the Ravens, over the last 3 or 4 weeks. We saw them
a lot of injuries.
Really struggle against Cleveland. They get lit up against Cleveland. Just haven't played very good football, and Lamar Jackson's had a lot of turnovers. And I think, we talk about them losing their running backs early in the season, and I think it's kind of taken its toll on the fact that everything has to run through Lamar Jackson in these games. And as we've gone through now 14 weeks of the NFL season, it's taken its toll. And he just hasn't been able to get the ball to the young receiver Bateman and Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews. It just seems like that offense isn't clicking on all cylinders, and they're having to kind of run through the scramble drill each week to get there without having that solid running game, and doesn't bode well for a Packer team that's really, really played well of late. Rodgers and Devontae Adams really able to find themselves in that connection against the Bears, as many teams do find themselves with a good spot against the Bears. And the Bears put up a good fight, in that Sunday night game. We saw some incredible punt returns and long runs by Grant.
He scored 30 points and didn't cover.
Grant, but again,
possible?
this Packer offense is really, really good, and whether Rodgers has a hurt foot or not, he's still been able to get that ball out quickly, and you get an Aaron Jones healthy and A.J. Dillon. They just have so many weapons, and without Baltimore having a healthy Lamar Jackson, it's going to be tough to keep up with the Packers in this game.
And that's why I think this number is going to continue to creep up, especially if he doesn't practice all week.
And they want that number 1 seed. I think Packers, that would be very, very important for them to know that the NFC has to roll through Green Bay in this winter that they'll be.
It's interesting that you say that. It's because I think we've had discussions about home field advantage isn't quite as dramatic as it used to be in all of sports. But if there's one team in the NFL that has an overwhelming imbalance, it's Green Bay. Having any team have to go play in Lambeau in late January, it is not ideal for any of those teams. Arizona and Detroit, I know you like to talk about teams that other teams can get well against. Arizona comes off a tough loss on Monday night. No hop, but 84% of the tickets are on Arizona against Detroit. They're almost a 2-touchdown favorite. They've got a tougher schedule down the stretch, but this is one of those games that they need to win here to keep pace kind of with the other teams.
Yeah, you said it, a 2-touchdown favorite. I don't know if Detroit can pull off the outright upset, so we'll be cheering for them to just stay within that point spread. But they've been one of those teams that just has the ability to get absolutely blown out. Go to Denver last week, again, not an ideal situation with Denver kind of on an emotional high after the Demaryius Thomas passing away. That team was sky high, ready to play that game.
Yep.
Kind of ran through them with Gordon and Williams. Were able to just run through the Lions. The Cardinals are a little bit banged up, obviously coming off the Monday night into a short week now where we're not going to have Hopkins. They've talked about the overusage of Connor in the backfield. They will get Edmonds off the IR. Kyler Murray, still, he
He's
missed
a little bit banged
he missed
up,
five. I think it was 5 games before he came back, played the Bears, and then at home against the Rams here. So obviously the bad thing for the Cardinals and bad thing for the Lions is that the Cardinals are coming off a loss. So they're going to want to have that get right game, get that big win to feel better and good about themselves. And so hopefully from our standpoint, the Lions can find a way to hang within 14 points. But again, another key thing to check with this game is who's actually playing for the Lions. They've been another team that's been massively shorthanded
Swift,
with
T.J. Hawkinson,
receivers out, a little bit of a development from Goff to Reynolds and St. Brown there. But again, if Swift is out or Williams is banged up and they don't have the tight end Hawkinson, really difficult for them to keep an offense going.
Another game, Atlanta and San Francisco. This is a Niner team that I think if they get in, which they are right now, I don't think anybody's going to want to play them in the postseason. Jimmy Garoppolo is playing probably some of his best ball right now. They're not even talking about Trey Lance. Deebo Samuel is a stud. Brandon Ayuk is starting to play better. Doesn't matter who they have at running back. Defense is getting a little bit better. Kittle had a phenomenal game last week. 74% of the tickets are on San Francisco. They're inching up to close to a double-digit favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about San Francisco at the beginning of the year, and I told you that they were the team that I had kind of circled as my Super Bowl team out of the NFC. And obviously, they had a mess at quarterback with Lance coming in and not knowing what was going to happen with Garoppolo. They lose Mostert at the beginning of the season, then kind of trying to develop their running game with Mitchell and Sermon and Jeff Wilson.
It's Samuel now.
Yeah, and yeah, you talk about the guy that's been the jack of all trades, the Swiss Army knife. Deebo Samuel's been absolutely fantastic, whether they use him out of the backfield, catching the ball the last 2 weeks. Kittle's absolutely exploded. Brandon Ayuk was a star last year at the end of the season and kind of disappeared for the first 9 games this year and has really come on of late. So their offense is clicking. Garoppolo's managing that offense, and more importantly, they're finding things on the defensive end. They're finding a way to stop teams. This is a big number for an Atlanta team. You know, we talk about teams that are bad and get picked on in the Lions and the Texans and the Jaguars. Atlanta is one of those teams that really had some really, really ugly weeks. They went and beat the Saints and then got absolutely destroyed by Dallas and then it shut out by the Texans or Titans or somebody else, and then they kind of had a bounce back win against Carolina. So I don't put Atlanta in that, you know, really bad teams. They're a team that's got close to a 500 record, so maybe they can sneak up and find a way to cover against this Niner team here, but definitely a tough trip to San Francisco for them. And again, they've been shorthanded without Ridley all year long. They've had a little bit of a development of Kyle Pitts, but Cordell Patterson has been there. You know, we kind of got the Swiss Army knife for both these teams, watching Deebo Samuel and Cordell Patterson. But Cordell Patterson's probably been the best guy in the NFL from a standpoint of running and receiving the ball out of the Falcon backfield.
Yeah, you're right about Ridley. I mean, they trade Julio Jones in the offseason. You think about Ridley, but Patterson and actually Russell Gage have both been kind of the go-to guys for Atlanta right now. Another game to me in the AFC, which I think you can kind of put in that case as maybe one of the marquee games of the week, is Cincinnati and Denver. Both teams are 7-6. Both teams looking for a wild card spot. It's a road game for Cincy. They lost back-to-back home games to the Chargers and Niners, kind of let 2 games get away from them. They're still a team, though, I think if they get in with Burrow and Higgins and Jamar Chase and Mixon, they're a really talented bunch. Denver's been a little bit of a surprise, I think, of late. They're quietly starting to put some wins together. They're 7-6. Love their young running back Williams. They kind of have that 2-headed monster back there, and Gordon and Williams. They can play some defense. I'm sure it's going to be cold. Just a very small favorite in this game, but we've seen it start to tick up a little bit in favor of Denver. And again, we've seen this on a number of games this week. The money's come in on Denver, but the ticket count actually favors the other team, and 68% of the tickets are on Cincinnati.
Well, Cincinnati, again, has been that fan favorite because of what they have on that offensive side of the football. Burrow and all those receivers and Mixon, they played so well for a couple weeks in a row.
They're fun to watch.
Mixon, was up in the kind of the top 3 running backs in the league on what they're doing from a rushing standpoint. He also catches the ball out of the backfield, but they've kind of been a miss on the defensive side of the football the last couple weeks. Chargers were able to put up a bunch of points on them. We watched the Niners put up a bunch of points. Burrow's had some bad interceptions in these games. It's just been a back-and-forth game. They just have been a miss on the defensive side of the football. So Denver, Bridgewater's asked to manage a game. They don't win a lot of games with their passing game, but, man, that 2-headed monster in the backfield with kind of the old man Gordon and the young guy Williams, they've been able to dominate games and
good
dominate
young receivers.
possession.
Really good young receivers.
Yeah, well, again,
Patrick and Judy
when you're
and
able
Sutton.
to run the ball, when Gordon and Williams are able to run the ball, and then from a defensive standpoint, you've got to come up and bring guys into the box to be able to run the ball. That's when Bridgewater has his best work, and then you're putting guys like Jerry Jeudy and Sutton and Fant in one-on-one situations
Patrick,
where those guys are going to win those situations. So, again, that's what that offense is trying to do, is get you to commit to stopping that run, and then they're going to be able to throw that pass over the top.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good matchup because the winner of this kind of puts himself in a better position for a wild card spot. We're going to come back for our last segment. We're going to touch on the Rams-Seahawks game, the 2 primetime games, and then Jay and My's favorite, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll be right back on Bookends.
Locals, here's how easy it is to start betting on games with the STN Sports App. They have sign-up locations across Las Vegas, so no matter where you are, you're less than 5 minutes away from getting started. They have convenient withdrawal and deposit options, so you can access your money at any time, even from the comfort of home. And once you're in, you're in. You can bet on all major sports even as the action is happening with a huge in-play wagering menu. So download the STN Sports App today and get started betting with the local favorite for over 40 years.
Hey guys, as we jump back in, and before we get into our final segment though, it's kind of breaking news. We talked about this earlier, that you have to really be kind of dialed in. It looks like the Washington football team now, 21 players potentially could miss this game due to COVID. You've seen that number start to jump even more than it has over the last few days.
Yeah, we saw them just short of a touchdown. Eagles being just short of a touchdown favorite. Now that game's going almost to double-digit favorite with the Eagles with the recent update that Washington's going to be missing many players.
So it's really important, again, do your homework, get as much information as you can, jump on social. They're always updating this stuff, but I know we're looking at it. You guys are as well. But again, 21 players, that's a major impact to that team. We've seen it with Cleveland as well. Those two teams right now, major line movement because of COVID. We're going to finish off this week's schedule. Big NFC East or NFC West, Seahawks, Rams. These two teams played earlier in the season on prime time. It was the game that Russell Wilson got hurt in. 82% of the tickets are on the Rams. We've seen this number come down a little bit because they have some COVID issues. No Beckham, Higbee might not be in this game. Henderson, they come off a huge win on Monday night against the Cardinals. They're about a 5.5 point favorite right now. I think it's a huge game for the Rams to kind of keep pace with those other top teams in the NFC.
Yeah, Rams obviously, it'll be a short week too with the big Monday night win, but I think that, again, getting that win because they had struggled in recent weeks. They got the win over the Jaguars, but hadn't really beaten a team with a winning record. And I know you talked about Stafford all those years playing with the Lions, but he hadn't won a game against a team with five
plus wins compared to their losses. He was 0-17, which meant that late in the season when he would play Minnesota or if Chicago was good or especially Green Bay, those were all L's. He was able to come away with a win Monday night, which was his first against a team like that in his career.
Yeah, so Stafford gets a little bit of a monkey off his back. And again, you talk about Henderson not playing or Higbee not playing. Sony Michel kind of stepped right in and was absolutely fantastic with no Darrell Henderson and the kind of all-world Cooper Kupp. I don't know that it really matters who else the Rams have catching balls with the way this guy's running around in the backfield. So Seattle's going to have to find a way to contain Kupp if Beckham doesn't play. Van Jefferson is another receiver that's really developed over the year. Blanton's the tight end that'll step in for Higbee. So they do have those other guys that can be weapons. But for me, this is more of a can Seattle come and play and do some stuff to challenge this Rams defense. Obviously, we saw the Rams able to somewhat contain Kyler Murray on the back end of things there and not let him escape and run for a ton of yards. He still had some really good scrambles, and now they're going to get Russell Wilson, who's had really a kind of a difficult time in finding Tyler Lockett and Metcalf this year.
He's not running anymore. If you look at his game, he's played a little bit better. I think in the last 3 weeks, he's had 2 touchdowns in each of those games. But the running element to his game just hasn't been there. I don't know if it's from the injury. It's just, wear and tear. It's a different scheme right now, but he's not running like he once did.
Yeah, and again, it's going to come down to that Rams secondary. They had some young guys that they had to plug in with some missing players against the Cardinals, and we saw A.J. Green go off for a big game, kind of picking on, I think his name was Orr, was the corner that was in there, substituting for Jalen Ramsey. So if Lockett and Metcalf can get one of those weaker matchups that Russell Wilson can try to go exploit, and then we saw the development of Rashard Penny.
Right, I was going to touch on that as well.
Get that chance. He had a big game again. Not that teams don't have big games against the Texans. The Texans, again, can make any offense look good. So we'll see if the Seattle's able to pull and have a good game against a better defense.
Well, in Penny's case, when they drafted him high, they thought he would be the guy. He's been injured for 3 years, but with Carson's neck injury and the surgery there, you don't know for sure will he come back or not. They're giving Penny the opportunity to kind of audition to be the guy next year. Last game, or the Sunday night game we'll talk about, is Saints and Bucks. Bucks come off that overtime win against the Bills, played a great first half, really struggled in the second half. Saints did win against the Jets. I mean, for them, it was great having Kamara back. Their whole offense had changed. Not sure they can have enough offense to kind of keep pace. You're going to need Taysom Hill to really play well here. They're over, a 10-point favorite here, Tampa. I think just the way they played that second half, you're going to see a good effort out of the Bucks on Sunday night.
Yeah, and you talked about this when we go back to the Dallas and Giants game, that it's a divisional matchup, and despite the fact that the Saints are an 11-point favorite, 11.5-point favorite.
They've played them tough over the last few years.
The Saints are one team that does play them well, and that's been because of the play in the secondary. The Lattimore and the other guys in the secondary seem to have a good matchup or rapport, being able to cover the Godwins and Evans and Gronks in recent years. So they're going to again have to have another big game to be able to stay in this game, and maybe this is that Taysom Hill that we saw against the Cowboys where they are able to put him in and he's able to run for 100 yards out of the backfield, and then you add a piece like Kamara.
They're going to need that.
Yeah, they spend a lot of time running the football, hopefully can win the time of possession battle to limit the number of opportunities that Brady has. And so, again, the Bucs are battling for this number one spot. They want to get this number one spot. We're again going to be in a spot where we're just cheering for the Saints to cover this number, and hopefully their defense can step up and do so.
I agree with you. I think then you look at Monday night, and it's the Minnesota Vikings, which I don't think anybody wants to play in the postseason because they have that ingredient. They can play defense. They have an emerging star at wideout in Justin Jefferson. We saw how good Cook played on prime time just a few weeks ago. Kirk Cousins, you just don't lose the game. Playing against our beloved Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. The Bears get back-to-back primetime games. Might be Matt Nagy's last primetime game that he's the head coach of the Bears. I don't think there's any seat that's hotter right now than his. And you look at a Viking team that's a little bit over a field goal favorite against the Bears on Monday night.
Yeah, and the one thing that's become very custom from a Minnesota Viking standpoint is they play a lot of one-score games. They play very, very tight games.
They find ways to keep teams in it.
Yeah, they've invented ways to try and blow games. You have to look at we talked on the Thursday night game that they played here recently. The clock management seems to be just absolutely horrid. Some bad decision making on when to throw the ball, when to run the ball. Get out of halftime with a score, and you got Cousins throwing picks at the end of halftime, giving other teams a chance to go in and score. But when you've got Dalvin Cook, much like Derrick Henry, when you've got a running back like that can go absolutely dominate a game, he was able to put up 200 yards last Thursday. You got a chance to win some football games, and same thing we kind of talked about with Denver of
weather could be a factor. Weather could be a factor, but you're right. Cook's
when you have to come up to stop the run, you have to come up to commit to Dalvin Cook. Now you leave Justin Jefferson one-on-one. We'll see if Thielen's back in this game, but saw the development of KJ Osborne last week, and so they do have that weapons.
Conklin at tight ends played really well.
Cousins, again, isn't a guy that's going to win a lot of games. He's asked to be more of a game manager. Sometimes he makes some absolutely horrid throws that you question, what they're doing on offense. But the Bears, again, we finally saw this a little fight in this team on Monday night. Again, why that was there with Aaron Rodgers saying, "I own you guys." The last time he was in Chicago, and so the Bears had to show a little bit of a fight with that trip up to Green Bay, and they really punched him in the mouth to start the game. Defense played well. Saw the
they played great for 30 minutes, right?
Grant, the run out of the backfield were fantastic, and then they went to halftime, and it was like a different team came out at halftime, and I don't think it was a different team on the Bears side of the football. I thought it was a different team on the Packers side of the football where they just said, okay, we're done playing with you guys. Let's go ahead and just win this game. And so the Vikings do have very much that same temperament of being able to run the ball, have the back-end weapons that really, really tough for the Bears to keep up. If that defense cannot slow these guys down, the offense just doesn't have the ability to match points on the scoreboard.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this Viking team, I think, again, they get into the postseason, no one's going to want to play them. They actually had Arizona beat mid-season. They missed a 38-yard field goal or would have a win there as well. So they're a pretty good team. That kind of, that looks at the football. We're not going to get into our favorite segment, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We love when John kind of cues it up in the background. You guys can watch. But first, it's the good. And it's Yay Vegas. 2024 Super Bowl has been awarded to Las Vegas and Allegiant Stadium. It's phenomenal. I mean, you talk about the NFL draft here next year and all the hype and hoopla around the draft. If you think that's exciting, you can only imagine what it's going to be like for Super Bowl. New Year's Eve is fun in Vegas, but Super Bowl will be off the charts. And we decided to get a jump on it, right?
Yeah, we took advantage of the Super Bowl being announced here, and so we put up some way, way too early.
I love it.
Super Bowl 2024 Super Bowl and way, way too early Super Bowl props. So you'll find on the app in the Pro Football the way too early 2024. We've got the AFC versus NFC. We've got the AFC, a very small favorite, and then we've got about 10 props up on the 2024 Super Bowl on will there be a defensive touchdown, will there be safety, will there be overtime. So those of you that want to get excited and hold that ticket on the 2024 Super Bowl without knowing who the teams are, but just get ready for the Vegas craziness.
Vegas, baby.
Come 2024, you can jump in on that. So
great
very
job.
cool.
Great job by the Hub guys putting all those props together and getting them out. Thanks, guys. That was awesome. I mean, it's just exciting. It brings a smile to my face just kind of thinking about, wow, how times have changed. If you go back 10 years, we couldn't even really advertise on the Super Bowl. And now you're going to have a game in our own backyard.
Yeah, and we were able to kind of steal a game with the NFL, kind of having some scheduling quirks with adding the 18 weeks. The 2024 Super Bowl was scheduled to be in New Orleans, but with the scheduling changes, that rolls into Mardi Gras. So New Orleans is elected to take the 2025 Super Bowl. So that left a hole. And, of course, with the party that we can put on here in Vegas, the league awarded us that 2024 game.
It's exciting. NHL All-Star Game, NFL Draft, and Super Bowl all coming to Vegas. Pretty exciting stuff, guys. All right, the bad. Sticking in pro football, Jacksonville Jaguars.
The midnight move.
The midnight move, yep. Urban Meyer, 13 games is all he survived in pro football with the Jags. Team was basically a train wreck, a lot of finger pointing. Players didn't want to play for him. He's out after a short tenure. But the amazing thing is that you usually see a coach get let go and the number goes down. What did this number do?
Well, we had the Jags were a 3.5-point favorite, which is a miracle to say that the Jags were a favorite as we sit here. But again, they're playing.
Who are they playing?
They're hosting the Houston Texans this week. They went from a 3.5-point favorite all the way up to a 5-point favorite, despite the fact
Doesn't
that
that
they're
speak
losing.
volumes?
Yeah,
though?
so it's addition by subtraction.
Right.
The team's become better already by losing the head coach, and I think that they're again knowing that they're a favorite this week, and what the mess that's been there with Urban Meyer, and I think this is just a snowball effect of it seems like every single week we're hearing new news out of Jacksonville on whether it's the treatment of players or players not liking the way things are going.
The fact that
there.
he didn't travel, remember? I mean, you go back to, I think it was week 4. They play on prime time. They lose to Cincinnati. He doesn't fly home with the team, which is kind of unheard of for a head coach not to do that. There's some other stuff that comes out with him based on that. But it's just, even Trevor Lawrence, he said, I mean, he's the number 1 overall pick. He is the face of your franchise. He's the guy that should be calling the shots for the next 10 years behind center. And he said, there is just too much drama on this football team. Prior to Urban Meyer letting go, that might be one of the straws that actually broke the camel's back.
Yeah, so he ends up in the NFL kind of record books, fourth shortest tenured coach. We saw Bill Belichick take. He's the number 1. The shortest coaching career was. He was one day the coach of the Jets after Parcells resigned, and then decided to. Pete Carroll left the Patriots, and he went over to the Patriots for one day. And then Lou Holtz had a 13-game. I think that was with the Jets as well, and Bobby Petrino had a 13-game season.
Atlanta.
So he'll go. I think it's 4th in the rankings of shortest tenures. So we'll see what happens there. And now the interesting questions from an Urban Meyer standpoint is the number of holes that maybe are in college football, of which college would bring him back.
He'll never coach in the NFL.
Yeah, I'll be
think.
surprised if a college takes a chance on him at least this year, just because of the mess and the way that this went down. So maybe he'll find his way back into college football a year or two from now.
You think about maybe a year from now, you're going to have Bob Stoops. So I know he's coaching Oklahoma in the bowl game, but Stoops, Orgeron, Urban Meyer, 3 huge coaches out there who've won national championships who will be available if schools are looking to go that route. So, all right, the ugly now. It didn't take long. This was pretty easy. You're looking right at it. That's the Cam look. But anyway, ugly Christmas sweater. We decided to have some fun with it for bookends. Just mad we didn't get a little sweater for Teaser, but he's kind of in the doghouse because he just didn't bark enough last week. We just didn't have enough dogs that came in, so we're giving him one more week. But ugly Christmas sweater. We thought we'd have some fun with it.
Chucky with the llama. I like to bust out the llama on the Christmas sweater.
And Jay, who his son's a high school baseball stud, and he's got the kind of tribute to baseball on his. It's kind of cool. I love it. So
go have some fun this holidays.
Yep.
Pick up your ugly sweater and adopt that.
We were going to both wear Packers ugly sweaters, but we decided not to.
The Sunday morning ugly sweater pajama as you open your gifts, and hopefully you're opening up the STN Sports App on Sunday morning as well on Christmas Day. As we'll go into those 5 NBA games on Christmas Day and
2 pro football games,
some
bowl games.
So just another reason. Make sure you come down and get the app. We get you signed up in less than 5 minutes. minutes with the STN Sports app. We've got a 10% bonus going on right now. Get the free STN Sports hat. You can gift that to somebody, re-gift it to somebody. But definitely enjoy the holiday season, and good luck in picking winners.
Yeah, we won't be with you guys next week because of the Christmas holiday, but from Jason, Teaser, myself, Station Casinos, STN Sports, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, enjoy times with your friends and family and loved ones. Be safe. Don't forget, though, all the games in the palm of your hand with STN Sports. Happy Holidays again, guys. We'll see you in a few weeks.